Have you heard of the dependent order of really meek and timid souls? When you make an acrostic of the first letters of its name, you have the word doormats. The doormats have an official insignia, a yellow caution light. Their official motto is, "The meek shall inherit the earth," if that's okay with everybody. Upton Dixon founded this society after he wrote a pamphlet called Coward Power. The world attaches little value to being gentle and meek. The Beatitudes of the world are more like this: "Blessed are those who assert themselves, for they shall get their way. Blessed are those who promote themselves, for they shall be noticed. Blessed are the aggressive, for they shall succeed." Nevertheless, Jesus said, "Blessed are the gentle, for they shall inherit the earth." Jack Lewis, commenting upon this verse, said that it seems to be an adaptation of Psalm 37:11, which stresses clinging to the Lord in all circumstances and promises that the wicked will be rooted out. Psalm 37:11 reads, "But the meek will inherit the land and enjoy great peace." When we look at the Beatitude itself, blessed are the meek, for they will inherit the earth. John Stott said that the Greek adjective here means gentle, humble, considerate, courteous, and therefore exercising self-control, without which these qualities would be impossible. Lloyd Jones said meekness is essentially a true view of oneself, expressing itself in attitude and conduct with respect to others. The man who is truly meek is the one who is truly amazed that God and man can think of him as well as they do and treat him as well as they do. And again, from Brother Lewis, rather than being those of no backbone, the meek are those who, having been tamed by God, are the masters of their own spirits. They contrast with the arrogant. When we think of the word meek or gentle, we remember that Moses was called the meekest of men. Numbers 12:3. Now Moses was a very humble man, more humble than anyone else on the face of the earth. The English Standard Version has this reading: "Now the man Moses was very meek, more than all the people who were on the face of the earth." Here was Moses, the leader of a great group of people. Not equality in size, a great group of people. He was in charge of a lot of people. He was in leadership. But yet he is called meek and gentle. Meekness was a trait of Jesus. Matthew 11:29, Jesus says, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls." Matthew chapter 21, verse 5, has this quotation from Zechariah chapter 9. "Say to the daughter of Zion, see, your king comes to you, gentle and riding on a donkey, on a colt, the foal of the donkey." This was said when Jesus rode into the city, his triumphal entry. In 2 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 1, Paul speaks of the meekness and gentleness of Christ. He says, "By the meekness and gentleness of Christ, I appeal to you." And meekness or gentleness is one part of the fruit of the Spirit, Galatians chapter 5. In this series, we're emphasizing the logical progression of the Beatitudes. One sees himself as nothing, first Beatitude, and God as everything. He mourns over his spiritual condition, the second Beatitude, which causes him to repent and turn to God. Then his spiritual poverty and deep sorrow result in a gentle, meek, yielding spirit, the third Beatitude. which accepts God's will without question. Gentleness equals power under control. There are some things that we know of that are very powerful. But if they are under control, they are very useful. An automobile has a lot of power, even those little 4-cylinder engines do. But you need to concentrate on where you're going and keep control of the automobile. I am reluctant almost to mention the horse as an example, because I have people here that know far more about that than I do. But you have a horse. He's bigger than you. You don't want him to step on you. You don't want him to get away from you. But yet, a horse can be controlled. A lot of strength, a lot of power, but he can be controlled. Maybe not Douglas's, but something. When I think of someone who had great strength, but who was meek or gentle, I remember Dr. Cohen in Virginia, who delivered our first 2 children. He was a big guy, like me. Well, maybe not quite as big as me, but he was big. He was good to have as a doctor. He couldn't say much to you about your weight because he was big too. But anyway, he was very gentle in handling our babies. A.W. Tozer once wrote, "The meek man is not a human mouse afflicted with a sense of his own inferiority. Rather, he may be in his mortal life as bold as a lion and as strong as Samson, but he has stopped being fooled about himself. He has accepted God's estimate of his own life. He knows he is as weak and helpless as God declared him to be, but paradoxically, he knows at the same time that he is in the sight of God of more importance than angels, in himself nothing, in God everything." That is his motto. When we are meek or gentle, one thing we realize is who we really are, and we put our trust in God to guide us and to give us true strength. John MacArthur Jr. wrote, "The meek person is not concerned about defending himself because he knows he doesn't deserve anything. He doesn't run around trying to get his due." Christians are to put on a heart of compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience. Colossians chapter 3, verse 12. As we teach the gospel and attempt to rescue the lost, we should do so in a spirit of gentleness. Galatians chapter 6:1 and other texts. Gentleness is a word that is largely lost its original meaning. And so we need to keep that meaning in mind. It does not mean weakness. Meekness is not weakness. But one can have great strength, but it is how they act. Well, blessed are the meek or the gentle, for they will inherit the earth. Inherit the earth? Who wants it? Do we really want to inherit the earth? What does that mean? You know, we would really expect the opposite of what Jesus says, that it would not be the gentle that inherit the earth, but those who are not. Stott says it is the tough, the overbearing, who succeed in the struggle for existence. Weaklings go to the wall. That's the attitude of the world, isn't it? But those who belong to Christ can truly enjoy the earth now and will be a part of the new heavens and new earth. I think we've known individuals who are anything but gentle. They just run roughshod through life. It doesn't matter who they offend, who they knock down. That's just the way we live. That is not the right way to live. Even when we say some tough things, as preachers say some tough things, say to a person, from what I can determine, you're lost. It's not an easy thing to rebuke someone's sin. But you do it with gentleness. You do it with love. That has a greater effect than running roughshod. And certainly those who are gentle will inherit the earth, as Jesus said. Henry Morehouse preached one evening on the love of God. In the meeting was a rough, wicked coal miner who had a vile temper, was a heavy drinker, and mistreated his wife and children when he had been drinking. His name was Ike Miller. Morehouse was told that Ike Miller was at the meeting and that many were praying that he would be saved. Morehouse preached his heart out, but Ike Miller didn't respond. Instead, he went straight out the door after the meeting and disappeared. Those who were anxious for Miller's salvation told Morehouse that he had failed to touch the town's biggest sinner. But what those men did not know, and what Morehouse learned later, was that Ike Miller had gone straight home. He had kissed his wife and tenderly gathered his 2 children into his arms, something he had not done for years. And sobbing, he prayed a prayer that his mother had taught him. Gentle Jesus, meek and mild, look upon a little child. Pity my simplicity. Suffer me